Greetings, brothers and sisters. I kind of took a day off yesterday, not really because I worked, but I didn't put out any content on my channels. I had a video that was left over because it was yellowed on my Apocalypse Now channel, my other channel, my other channel. And then on my Positive Future channel, this channel, I put up a Journey Series video because I made a 5-hour video that's going to go on my Gratefullness meditation channel. You know, for those of you who know, I've been doing this thing called Sajmarg meditation for over 30 years. And then in the past, almost 9 years, and it seems like that time has flown by just saying that out loud, but 9 years ago, the previous master of the system, Charji, died. And his successor is a complete nightmare. And I've documented this on my Journey Series videos. And he's just an ass clown. And he said something so, just bizarrely incompetent and anti the system in an interview that I finally broke down and made a video for members of the system. You know, a system I no longer belong to. That may be in doubt or kind of see that this guy's horrible. And, I've kind of not wanted to get into it because I don't know these people anything, and they're just, they've fallen apart in the sense that they've allowed this guy to run the system into the ground and demonize his, former teacher and mentor, the previous master of the system, and just make one bonehead decision after another. But these people have just, sheeple do, have allowed him to do this. And so, I got involved for a little bit in my Journey series, and he was watching some of my videos, and people on either side, there's a group of people that are anti-Dodgy, and, I found that they were also manipulative and icky, and they were trying to use me in different ways, and I didn't like, either side. So I just told everyone to go away, and, I said I wasn't going to get involved with it ever again in terms of their, of making videos intended for them, because it, seemed like just not good for me. I've said this before. I don't make videos to change people's minds, or I don't get into people's belief systems, because you can't do that. Like when you're making videos thinking you're going to change people's minds, or you're going to open up people's minds to your point of view, or their hearts, or whatever you want to call it, that you can affect people only if they really want to change. People who are desperate and looking for some explanation, who are looking for some, they want to change, and they're looking for someone to help them be a catalyst to change, which is about probably 1% of the total viewership in the truth community. Everyone else has pretty much made up their minds. And certainly in the heartfulness, debacle, they've all made up their minds. But I was led to make a video, and it took me, basically 2 days to do it. It'll be up on the Gratefullness meditation channel in the near future. I was hoping to get the channel monetized before I put it up. I need another 400 hours of view time there, so I have to think about, it's really cold here, and I just, I've been kind of lazy. And so I got to figure out a way to, make that happen, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do. Or maybe I'll just put the video up and let that video be the catalyst for it being over the limit. You need 3,000 hours of view time to get monetized, and I want to get monetized there so that I can turn off the ads on the meditation videos. But anyways, so that's the explanation why I sort of am behind the 8 ball here a little bit in terms of videos. I was a day ahead of time before this, but I took 2 days to make that video. And so let's get started with this stuff with Trump. The way I look at the whole thing, I've said this before, that we're not changing the system. And as much as I'd like to see the collapse delayed because of my age or whatever, that's, on a selfish level, I've accepted that the system has to come down. And, that is liberating in a lot of ways. Because I don't have to root for one thing or another. I don't have to look for a savior. I don't have to take any of this stuff too seriously because I know in the end, if the system goes down, it's for what's best in terms of, the divine plan, in terms of the planet, in terms of future generations, all these things, right? The system coming down is, a good thing, even though for all of us, it's not such a good thing, right? And so I don't, get upset about something, or I don't hit the panic button, when somebody sucks. And of course, they all suck to some extent, the people who are in politics I'm talking about here. But Trump has done and said some things here. It should just disqualify him, and people should just throw him, like overboard, his supporters, but they'll never do it. Trump supporters will never do it. If you're a Trump supporter, you got to kind of own that. Like he's saying things, and let me get into this headlines here, that, are really bad. Like it's just horrible. So this is what I'm talking about here. Trump pushes for total immunity, including events that cross the line. So these are, another video that has the quote here. This is from an interview with Hannity. Let me turn this down here a little bit.
What is your closing message to the people in New Hampshire?
It's very simple. It's make America great again.
Okay. You got anything new? Do you got anything that's not 2016?
But I think very important, before we do this, because you were talking about the Supreme Court, they have two votes that are very important coming up. One is, as we discussed, we call it Colorado or whatever, but, I really believe they're going to leave the people to vote. Again, you're the leading candidate in both parties. You're leading the Democrats by many, many points. I mean, it's hard to imagine they would do. And most...
So Trump is saying here, I'm editing, and I watched this a second time, and what he's about to say is that it's about criminal prosecution and immunity for the president. What he's saying here is the leading candidate shouldn't be under legal, shouldn't be being prosecuted. Well, I'm the leading candidate, so they shouldn't be, putting me in jail or anything, right? Either you're guilty or you're not. It doesn't matter whether more people, it's not a popularity contest, right?
Again, you're the leading candidate in both parties. You're leading the Democrats by many, many points. I mean, it's hard to imagine they would do. And most states have already approved it, as you know. Very few states have done that. This is Colorado and a couple of others at this moment. But they have another important, and that's immunity for the president. The president of the United States, and I'm not talking about myself, I'm talking about any president, has to have immunity. Because if you take immunity away from the president, so important, you will have a president that's not going to be able to do anything. Because when he leaves office, the opposing party, president, if it's the opposing party, will indict the president for doing something that should have been good, like Obama.
What is your close?
So there's a real problem with this, and I hope that Trumpers can see this, and they probably can't. And, it's just, so many things are just a sign of the need for drastic change because people are, so low consciousness, right? But the problem with this is, you can't make a decision, and Trump doesn't care about future presidents. He doesn't care about the presidency. He doesn't care about America. Trump cares about Trump. And everybody who, can't see that and is blinded by their own, internal weaknesses of character that they are looking for a savior, and this guy somehow fits the bill. It's a problem, but Trump cares about Trump. And this is the same thing we saw with the Cubies. You guys remember when the Cubies were so freaked out by, the pizza stuff and all the things, human trafficking stuff, all these things, that they were willing to give up their judicial rights. They were willing to throw away all their rights to due process and back secret military tribunals where people would be brought to Guantanamo Bay and be prosecuted at a prison without their, having an American justice system. And these were so-called patriots. Like it's, stupidity. You're going to give something up thinking that they're going to go get the bad guys. What they're really going to do is take your judicial rights away from you and then use that against you, right? The right to due process, all these things, right to attorney, all these types of things, right? So with people so desperate for Trump to get elected, and they push for presidential immunity, and that would mean that any president would be free from criminal prosecution and could murder people. I mean, and they've done this in the past, presidents, right? And got away with it. But there's always that fear. No matter how well these people are connected, they're paranoid, weak people who, at some level feel guilt and remorse, even though their egos don't show it. Their egos aren't conscious of it because they're such, sociopaths. They have some spiritual essence that is looking for punishment. When somebody does something bad, some part of them wants to get caught. Some part of them wants to be, punished for what they've done. I'm even on a spiritual level. And so knowing what you know about these criminal politicians, these horrible people, would you want any of them have free reign to do whatever they wanted and not face criminal prosecution? I mean, think about that, right? Leaders, these are all bad people, but even if they were good people, you'd only need one bad one, right? Your own horrible person to get that kind of power where they could, as president, do whatever they wanted and not face criminal prosecution, right? And so Trump, he's already done. And the Trumpers don't understand this, that even if he was elected president, he's got no power to change anything or do anything. He should just go away, right? Because whatever comic value, whatever he did as president in his first term, whatever good things there were, the liberal media flipping out over him being elected, all those things. His character arc has run the course. And he's not going to, bring any joy to people or bring any, it's not going to be, it's going to be just drama and more drama and all these things. It's a bad situation, right? Like the left will never let him sleep. The media will never let him rest, and his supporters, and it'll be a constant battle. And nothing that you think he's going to accomplish will be accomplished. It'll just be the opposite, and they'll push their agenda through. And so, with Trump being the candidate, for whatever reason, they think Joe Biden is the guy to beat him. I mean, the Democrats have issues. If Trump doesn't run, then Joe Biden can't run. Like, they have to get rid of him. And so you get rid of both guys. And again, you're not going to find a quality politician. They're not going to elect somebody who's going to affect change. But at least this part is over, because this show is, two 80-year-old diaper-wearing dudes, being, running again for president. Nobody really wants to see that again. Like, I kind of want to see it out of morbid curiosity. But, there's nothing good that's going to happen. And certainly you shouldn't change anything in the basic policies, because checks and balances, like for example, for this, you shouldn't make any major changes like giving the president immunity just to elect Trump for 4 years when he's in his 80s. And so, this is just a bad idea. This is classic Trump, right, who's pretending it's about something other than himself, and it's always about him. And, it would be best for everyone if they just threw him in prison. I mean, except for him. But anyways, it's a disaster. But then on the other side of the coin, we have a couple of Morning Joe pieces here where Joe Scarborough, just like his obsession with Trump, and this is part of what I'm talking about. And he's just gotten, they've gotten so weird. Like everything in 2024, and it's been going on for years now. But again, this is the year of the amateur. Things are getting stupider on both sides. So let's cover Morning Joe here. And I mean Joe Gumby Scarborough.
I meet with great groups in New Hampshire. I then get on a plane late at night when it's snowing and freezing out. Wonderful. And the pilots say, sir, it's going to be tough. And I get there early in the morning. I go to a Biden witch hunt. And then I come here in the afternoon and I stop and we make speeches and we get your votes and all that stuff. But nobody's ever had to do this before.
So people didn't do it before because usually candidates who judges say are rapists don't usually get this far. But what we found in Iowa a couple nights ago was, well, Iowa Republicans that voted, those 14%, they like their presidential candidates that are called rapists by judges. And they like their presidential candidates that steal nuclear secrets.
And repeatedly defame women.
And they like their presidential candidates that repeatedly defame women.
The greatest part here is right here at the end. When Mika chimes in and just And he repeats it like she just used the Jedi mind trick on him.
Rapists by judges, and they like their presidential candidates that steal nuclear secrets.
And repeatedly defame women.
And they like their presidential candidates that repeatedly defame women.
The thing about it is, if you are going to be a realist, which many people aren't, let me, I'm editing here, and I just want to explain what I mean by realist. So there is, Trump attacked DeSantis in the beginning of the campaign because DeSantis was the clear front runner, in terms of, or the second place guy, or the second runner, right, to Trump. But now he's attacking Nikki Haley. And he came out and said that he only appointed her, which was stupid. I played that clip. I mean, he was just ridiculously stupid. That he only appointed her because he wanted somebody else to be governor of South Carolina, but he put her in a much more important position in the UN, right? And that's not true. Trump just makes up things about that suit him at the time. And he does it in a more obvious way. But everybody does this, right? So, you'll find a way to excuse Trump's behavior and demonize Biden. Or Morning Joe will find a way, and they're going to talk about Trump being senile here in a second, which is hilarious, and not mention Joe Biden, right? And what I mean about being a realist is being objective about what's happening and just being honest, right? Not trying to warp the truth to fit your feelings. Don't, change the facts to fit your feelings, right? Don't rearrange reality because you need to believe something. And most people, even in the truth community, especially I think in the truth community, because truthers think whatever they believe is the truth, right? Like they're like, well, we've gotten away from the official story, so whatever I think is the truth, and that's, that's even worse, right? But Morning Joe is doing this here, where they're, he's just so bad at it. Like they're so, they just suck so bad. If you're going to be, try to bring in some objectivity as a reporter or just as a human being, you would say the truth about what the other side believes, right? What does the Republican Party believe? And what do Trumpers believe? And I'm not agreeing with what they believe. I just know what they believe. And what they believe is the system is rigged against Donald Trump. And there's evidence to support that. Not that Donald Trump isn't a piece of crap, because he is. He sucks. And not that he isn't a criminal, because even before he was president, all these, he was doing things that were, towing the line and certainly criminal behavior and things that were immoral and unethical, right? He's a cheat. He cheated his vendors. He cheated people, poor, not wealthy people working for him. People who were supplying his hotels and his businesses, and he'd stiff them, right? He wouldn't pay them. And then all the other things. He cheated on his spouses. He's a bad guy. So it isn't like Donald Trump's a good guy. But you guys are clearly obsessed with him. And it all looks like it's, not equitable, considering Joe Magoo has obviously taken money. Joe Biden and his son Hunter have taken money and sold access, which means he's corrupt and, possibly even, we're a traitor, right? If it's not a traitor, something along those lines. So the Republicans rightfully believe that the system is rigged, against Trump, and it's all performative, and, you can look deeper, but that's what these people believe, right? And, they can't see how bad Trump is. That's true. But you guys can't see how bad Biden is. And, we can see it here because watch this.
With Obama, we won an election that everyone said couldn't be won.
Obama dropped missiles and they ended up hitting a kindergarten. If that's the case, he's going to end up being indicted when he leaves office.
Obama he doesn't want to talk about it. He doesn't want to mention, he doesn't even mention.
They got him good here. I appreciate that. That's, I like that kind of thing, obviously.
Them in his statements. It's all coming through Iran.
Well, you mean President Biden?
They were interviewing him 2 weeks ago, and they said, what would you advise President Obama? The whole world seems to be exploding. They never report the crowd on January 6th. Nikki Haley is in charge of security. We offered her 10,000 people, soldiers, National Guard, so whatever they want. They turned it down.
He was confused. He was confused the same way he said Joe Biden was going to start World War II.
We would be in World War II very quickly if we're going to be relying on this man.
Clearly, Donald Trump is not the same Trump from 2016.
When I came here, everyone thought Bush was going to win. They thought Bush because Bush supposedly was a military person. Great. You know what? He was a military. He got us into the Middle East. We came up with a new couple of words for corn. Viktor Orban, Hungary, very powerful. He fronts on both Russia and Ukraine. They were funding Hezbollah and Hamas.
When he gets off the teleprompter, there's a lot of mistakes, a lot of stream of consciousness stuff.
We're also going to place strong protections to stop banks and regulators from trying to debank you from your political beliefs, what they do. They want to debank you, and we're going to debank. Think of this. A very big hello to a place.
He wasn't saying debunk. He was saying that they were going to cancel your bank account. So that's why a lot of this stuff is bad. He's definitely lost his edge, and he's making a lot of mental mistakes, right? He's 80. But we'll get into this, they'll come around to Morning Joe in a second here.
Where we've done very well. Sioux Falls. Thank you very much, Sioux Falls.
You're in Sioux City, not Sioux Falls. And so, let's watch the end of this because there's a comparison here.
So Sioux City, let me ask you, how many people come from Sioux City?
Oh, good morning and welcome to Morning Joe. It is Monday, January 22nd.
So they're doing what we've been doing and the right has been doing with Joe Biden. Now, Joe Biden has way more gaffes and they're worse gaffes. And just he's confused in his look in his face. He comes out like a deer in headlights, right? And they're going to go down this road where they're going to use deteriorating mental abilities. As, back when Joe Biden ran in 2019 and, he was walking off stage challenging people to push-up contests, he was showing signs of dementia, not early dementia, but dementia, all the way back in 2019. Like he had these meltdowns on stage and they didn't cover it, right? And so this is the title of this video. Trump really thinks he's running against Obama. And so they're going to bring up senility, right? Their candidate has been senile for the past, 5 years. He's broken down mentally. Their guy. And he was worse than Trump. He was worse than Trump then. Trump wasn't showing signs of anything then. Now Trump is starting to break down. And neither one should be president, right? Like they just shouldn't be. But Biden is worse. You can't bring something up. And they've always done this. They bring up things that the other side obviously has the same problem. Because there's not much difference between Trump and Biden as human beings. They're both got the same similar issues. They're both creepy around women. They're both, they're from that generation. And they have these, these different styles of public speaking that are, similar. And, they're very similar people. They're both corrupt. They're both, in different ways, but the same way, it's about money and, power and things like this. And, they're both performative. They're the same guy basically, right? And, when they bring up a weakness of one, their guy has the same weakness, right? Maybe not as bad, but certainly, along the same lines. And so you have these people are so, wound up about, oh my God, we can't have Biden. Oh my God, we can't have Trump. They're the same guy, right? You're going to have different outcomes, but the outcomes are going to be bad because they themselves are corrupt, weak, stupid, puppeted people, right? There's no real difference here.
Good to have you all here with us this morning. With us, we have.
Yeah. I was just going to say, the Nikki Haley thing.
That one
was disturbing. We talked about this on Friday about Obama and his problems, and there was actually some poor guy who said, "Oh, they're making things up now to distract from Joe Biden." No, I'm not trying to distract from Joe Biden. Joe Biden's doing just fine.
What do you mean? He's senile. How could you say that? You're saying dazed and confused Trump's troubling mindset. Biden has been senile for 5 years, and you guys refuse to mention it. Like, it's obvious to everybody. Like how bad of a shield you have to be, right?
We're talking about the fact that time and time and time again, Donald Trump, who's obviously, as Ron DeSantis said, lost more than a step, and as Nikki Haley says, is really, really confused up there. And she says, well, our kids deserve better than somebody that doesn't know where they are or what they're doing.
Hello? Like, it's just, I mean, you're talking about Joe Biden here. So I want to interject something here. I'm in the editing process. When I cover these videos live and I make commentary fresh off the cuff, right, there's advantages to it because, it's funny to me, the jokes that happen, like, immediately or whatever, or my immediate reaction. And that's great. But also, sometimes after I watch something, I think about it. And both things happen. So I turned on the news. I watch ESPN and the news while I eat breakfast. It takes me about a minute or two to eat breakfast. And they were doing a fluff piece on how great Nikki Haley was on Morning Joe, this very show. They were talking about how great Nikki Haley was. And, I thought also to do with this here. I'm like, well, you're trying to make a case that Trump is senile, and then you're trying to pump up Nikki Haley, who you don't like, and if she was a candidate, you'd be slamming her and talking about how much better Joe Biden is. And yet you're also saying Trump is going to jail. On your network, Rachel Maddow said, yeah, he's going to jail. He's going to jail. She whispered, tried to make it funny. But if you thought he was going to jail, then why are you demonizing him? Why are you even covering him at all? I know you don't have anything else to talk about. But why are you, propping up Nikki Haley and saying he's senile when you're also saying he's for sure going to jail? Like, so is he not going to jail? It looks like he's going to jail, but you're not sticking to that, right? You're certainly covering him, and I know you don't have anything else to talk about, but, he's not going to jail then. You're treating him like a legitimate candidate who has multiple felony charges against him in multiple states. There's the prosecutors in Georgia are having an affair, with the prosecutors having an affair with like the mayor or something. And the whole thing's it's amateur hour, right? This is all amateur hour stuff, the year of the amateur.
But you see him go through his speech and he struggles and he starts to say Obama, and then he cuts himself off because his mind's going, wait, is Obama really president still?
What decade am I in?
What decade am I in? And then he continues.
Oh my God. Just the compilation of Joe Biden's gaffes. A guy has, tripping over things and, just wandering around on stage and wandering around mentally and, all of it. Like every time Joe Biden speaks, he's gaffed for the past 5 years. He's bad at it. They couldn't even run him like a regular candidate, so they had to close down the system with COVID, right? Like he couldn't run a campaign. He challenged guys to fights. He called some guy fat and some guy, he challenged the guy to an IQ contest and push-up contest, right? Like he was falling apart. He had all these things that he was just lost when he was talking, all these events, and we've seen it. Like he's a gaffe magnet and just someone who's obviously senile, right? And then they're going to bring this up against Trump. They've done this before. And Biden's just fine. And he's got a son who's a crackhead son who's made $1.5 million as a new artist who's done everything in his power to game the system so he can support his drug habit. And that meant selling influence his dad to foreign countries, which is, borderline treasonous, right? And they refuse to acknowledge this. And again, not that Trump is anything. Trump sucks. They should both go away. And if they both went away, what are we going to have? Kamala versus Nikki Haley? DeSantis versus Gavin Newsom? There's no good options, right? There's no one out there that's going to save the country. The people are like lame people. They're people who, I wouldn't hire for any job. I wouldn't do, there's nothing that they could do for me, where I would trust them to do a good job on any scale, right? Like sweep the floor. Like, nothing they could do. They're incompetent, like scummy people, right? Deceptive and low, they're low functioning.
And he goes ahead and just says Obama's name because he can't remember Biden's name. And we had the same thing the other night where he goes, Nikki, Nikki, Nikki. He says it 3 times.
Like Beetlejuice.
He moves on thinking that, wait, but that doesn't sound quite right, but maybe.
So I was watching the news last night. I thought the election, for whatever reason, maybe I thought it was Tuesday. I must have thought it was Tuesday. So I just turned on CNN, and they had Mark Sanford, who was the governor of South Carolina. You guys remember this guy. I think either before or after Nikki Haley. And Mark Sanford had this wonder wife who was his campaign manager. She was like a Yale graduate. He was kind of a putz. And like they had 4 kids, and she did everything for him. And he went off and like married or divorced her or had an affair and then married a woman from Argentina. Some like, or so one of those countries, South American countries. And it was the weirdest thing. I mean, just weird. Like he got busted and he got ousted as governorship, and his wife was like, WTA. She like, WTF. I could have said what the hell. I mean, she was like completely, she couldn't believe it, right? Like she was, handling this guy and managing his life, and like it was everything for the guy, and he just ran off with some, women from South America as governor, and like it was totally public. And then now he's on the news commenting, right? He was a disgrace, and now he's on CNN talking about South Carolina because they're, that's the next primary. And, it just shows you that nothing sticks, right? No matter how bad you are and what you do, you can come back from it, like in America. Give 10 years, people forget, and you're back on the news as a, reliable source, right? I haven't looked at my messages today yet, but I want to get this going. I have a bunch of things where there's indications of war, that they're preparing for war in other countries or America.
You need to have water, you need to have a radio on batteries, and you need to have a flashlight on batteries to make sure that you can survive the first 36 hours. Things like that. That's simple things. But it starts there. The realization that not everything is plannable, not everything is going to be hunky-dory in the next 20 years.
They're kind of indicating that World War III is going to start in Europe and then, trickle over to, America, I guess. Okay, we'll get back to World War III. This was hilarious.
Real quick, before we get started, thank you, everyone. Governor DeSantis, I want to present to you this participation trophy. Now, probably not going to win the election, right? But we're proud of you for trying. There you go. Sorry, buddy. He's special, he's unique, and he's our little snowflake. Thank you.
He got him good. And this is right before DeSantis withdrew. So, I mean, it's salt in the wound, because a couple of days later, DeSantis had to quit, and it was just, I don't know if his campaign did anything for him, but he got clowned. He was wearing lifts on his feet, these weird shoes. He's a weird guy, weird smile, and the Trump thing, like he saw himself as Trump's successor, and now that doesn't look like it's possible. But like I said, anything's possible in politics because people suck so bad and everything is degraded that he might, make some sort of comeback later, but he's kind of unelectable. What I'm saying here is sometimes when you run for president, you get more recognition, but sometimes you get exposed as just a piece of poop, and it seems like that's what happened to him. Germany preparing for Russia to start World War III, leaked war plans reveal. Europe is preparing for Russia President Vladimir Putin to expand the country's war in Ukraine and attack NATO ally countries next year, leaked documents published in German newspaper reveal. So this is, kind of a big thing that's going on. Leaked German documents show leaders are preparing should Russia launch World War III, reports. So, this is, on the table. I covered this last time a little bit, and that tetracycline, which is a antibiotic, was found in mummies. So the mummies were taking an antibiotic. And they said it was in their beer. Ancient Nubians drank beer laced with antibiotics. So, that's their explanation. I don't know whether it's true or not. This is Nathan and Emma on the Jimmy Kimmel show, and Nathan Fielder's holding up the devil's horns. This show was an abomination. I've already covered it, right? All the things I said about it before. So this is one of my viewers said that I guess Kennedy came out to the theme from Hulk Hogan. Is that what this is? Okay, so I don't want to get copyrighted, but I guess he came out to this thing here. And then his dude came out.
In meeting Bobby, he truly does care about people. That's who he
Wait,
is.
he does care about people? He truly does? Wait, I didn't know that. He truly cares about people.
Is at his core. As you may know, he's one of the most prominent environmental attorneys.
Yeah, but he's also a shill for Israel.
Before, and I have 10 months to do it. And I'm in better shape than any independent in history.
Woo! He's in Hawaii. I don't know if this was a real crop circle, but it has a Freemasonic floor and the hallway here and the doors. I don't know what that's all about. So now we're going to have World War III things. I have a few more things coming about that. And aliens. I mean, I didn't mean it to go this way, but it's kind of interesting.
It's my personal belief that there are residents, visitors, and strangers. Residents being, I believe, entities that have been here long before humanity appeared, and in fact may have had some hand in making us who we are today. Otherwise, we'd still be primates with bonobos, chimpanzees, and gorillas.
It's pronounced bonobos, buddy.
We're not. We've been elevated. And I believe it is the residents who did this. It is my personal belief.
All right. So this guy's a former CIA officer, John Ramirez. And he is saying that he thinks that there's been genetic manipulation. This is something on Apple TV. John Ramirez, CIA agents, close encounters. So that must be from that show. So this is, there's a episode 20, or season 20, episode 3 on Apple TV. There is a close encounter. They've had 20 seasons, so good for them. Pascal Najati, global U.S. military operation / storm reality in 2024. The weird thing about this is it is on CNBC, and it reads like a QB truther kind of thing here. The current wartime president is our retribution for high treason and democide by corrupt rogue government element. The bloop. This is total obliteration of the globalist deep state. In the year 2023, it's become evident that the COVID psyop was meticulously planned and executed long before its implementation. I'm not going to read all this because, you can find it for yourself. But I guess this is an op-ed. But they're talking about World War III and these things. And this is, again, on CNBC. This is what YouTube calls, authoritative news. Pro-Israeli lawmakers in both parties are losing confidence in Netanyahu. It's really hard to defend Beatty or justify his political strategy in all of this, said one House Republican. There's real distrust. There's real question about his ability to lead. Biden to Beatty, back to state. Netanyahu, no, I won't. Blinken tells Beatty Saudis want a peace deal, but not without two-state thing. This is the thing. That Netanyahu lied about backing two-state solution. And so he doesn't want to do it. And of course he shouldn't do it if he's a Zionist. Because their belief is, and I don't know if he really believes this or not, but this is the people he represents. Their worldview is that God promised them the land. It's promised land. And the land is more than just that land. It's all of this land. It's Egypt, it's Saudi Arabia, it's Iraq, it's Syria, it's Lebanon. I mean, this is just Israel here, right? And then the rest of this land is what's considered the promised land. And so Why would someone who believed God promised them this land give away land to their sworn enemy? It's not happening. And, it's just, at least he's being honest about it, right? So I turned ESPN on to eat my breakfast this morning. And it was supposed to be Sports Center, but it was really tennis. And I looked on the screen, and there was a guy named Sinner playing tennis. Janik Sinner, he's an Italian tennis player. And he was playing some other dude. And I'm like, they name people sinners in Italy. Apparently, I didn't know that was a last name you could have. Imagine growing up in that family, the Sinner line. I mean, somebody did something in the past and screwed a whole, a genetic line there with that name. And why wouldn't you change your name, right? So, that's what I ate breakfast, and I turned on ESPN, and they had a guy named Sinner playing tennis, and then turned on MSNBC. It's so pro-Democrat, and they were doing this lavish puff piece pumping up Nikki Haley, right? And, not only is it the year of the amateur, but there's alien stuff and World War III stuff that's been very prevalent. Of course, what happened with Miami first, the stuff with Miami and whatever that was about, and then things since then to do with aliens. That's coming out. And people are focused on that. And also, World War III is being prepared for globally. And, there's been a shift in 2024. And there's been the belief that apocalypse is possible for the past, 5 years or whatever. I mean, they're both candidates are talking about how it's the end of America if the other candidate gets elected. I mean, they're campaigning where if you elect the other side, it represents the end of America. Like, that's their campaign slogans, right? That's how bad the division is there. And we're moving towards this inevitable, the inevitable collapse of certainly our country, and then the global economy to go with it. The global economy can't survive America collapsing. And so there's going to be things that happen globally, and, however the dominoes fall. And pretty much everybody's at least believing it partially. Like, they see it as being a partial, that there's a chance that this may happen. And there's, like I said, a shift. And it's been growing. It isn't like people weren't believing this in 2023 or 2022 or 2016 when Trump got elected, or 2020 when Biden got elected. But now it's, pretty much everybody, has a sense that this could collapse at any second. And very few people are doing anything about it. I just did this sort of epic takedown that I'm going to upload on my Gratefullness meditation channel. I talked about that in the introduction here. It's a 5-hour video, and, it's more for practitioners of the system who, I don't really like and I'm not really connected to, but it's just something that was, on my mind. And Daji came out and said something ridiculous, the master of the Sajmark system. He said that, there's these 13 yatra points, and he said that 5 women who were digging holes outside his air-conditioned building in the hot summer heat, and April is summer in India, it's 110 degrees or whatever, and he invited them in to meditate, and they went from the first point to the 13th point that takes, by self-effort, like millions of years, according to the philosophy and the teachings of the system, in a fraction of a second. And I'm going to cover this on my Journey series as well, but it's just ridiculous. Talk about amateur hour. And so I made this long video. And, there are these predictions and prophecies going all the way back to a book that was published in 1956 called Reality at Dawn. And people who do the Sajmark system were given these Whispers of the Brighter World messages on top of that, talking about the collapse of civilization and a big event that's going to happen 25, 26. And I talked about this recently. And, I'll read some of these messages going forward, not today, but, as they come up and things like that. And they're not doing anything to prepare for it. I mean, the mission itself has food growing in some of these ashrams and places. But the people who have access to these teachings and prophecies are not doing anything. And back in 2011 and 10 when my family was homesteading, they were giving me a lot of boop. They were telling me it was wrong, even dodgy. This piece of crap. They didn't believe in it, right? And now things are starting to go south, and everyone sees it, and they're still not doing anything. And my faith in humanity's ability to survive, like when you know something's coming, and I'm not suggesting you do radical things like quit your job, but move out. I mean, but prepare. Like at least give yourself a fighting chance if the system you're 100% dependent on is taken down. And most people can't do that, right? Most people can't prepare in that way. And, it would be sad, but I mean, what are we talking about losing here, right? I mean, there isn't like much that's great that's, involved with the human race right now. But anyways, I'm going to wrap this one up and get it up on the internets. And like I said, I'm doing this now back in real time. Today's Tuesday the 23rd. And, uploading, and I'll make this public today. I was ahead by one video, but I lost my lead when I did the big 5-hour dodgy takedown. But anyways, all that stuff's coming, and, let me get this up on the internet, and I'll put the other thing up, and I'll release that sometimes next week or later on this week. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely pointing for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day, and be grateful.